Welcome back to Hillbilly Pillars. Today I'm continuing my rundown of my 25 favorite albums of my lifetime so far. I knocked out the first 5, so that means I'm starting at number 20. So let's go ahead and get to it. We have Colter Wall, Songs of the Plains from 2018. Take a look at this cover because it's really important. I'll get right back to that in a second. Colter Wall, I discovered, I think like most people did who have gotten into his music, via YouTube here. He had a couple of videos that he did at a brewery session when his career was just starting. They featured his own songs, and he had a kick drum, and it was just him on acoustic guitar. And they were otherworldly. And just by the time I found them, they had hundreds of thousands of views. And I was like, who is this guy? He had this deep baritone voice and these songs that, had a country bend to them, but were more just like rooted in some sort of combination of Johnny Cash and folk music. Just really hard to deny powerful stuff. And went down a hole finding out about this man from Swift Creek, Canada. And lo and behold, at the time when I discovered him, he had recorded an album and was planning to release it. It had not come out yet. It was going to be his second studio album. But they had released the cover artwork, which is what I showed you. And it is obviously a callback to like 60s era country music album covers, the typeface and, the lettering. And then on the back, it's even got, a write-up like they would do. And some old country albums would be like a radio DJ from a big city who would be like, this is why you should own this album. So it all harkened back to that. And there was just something about it that I decided I needed to own it on vinyl. So this was 2018. Up until that point, I had not had interest in vinyl records. I was a CD person and, had moved over to streaming. But this started the problem we all know and love. I ordered the record from a local record store, and I went out and got a record player and did the thing, the lights out and all that kind of stuff for my first listen. And it was over then. I'd realized by getting into streaming music, I'd gotten out of just the really, truly rewarding experience of like taking a break from other things and purposefully like, I'm going to sit down and listen to an album. It was a real game changer for me. But outside of that, outside of what it represented, I love this record. It's almost entirely songs written by Wall, and he is a fantastic songwriter. Like I said, there's a lot of folk elements to it tied into his country western vibe. The record actually ends with a cover of kind of a classic western song, and that kind of portended what was to come. He really moved in that western music direction, which I've enjoyed, but the nature of it doesn't quite hit as hard as like the totality of this does. It's a very quiet, brooding record. I think the vibe they were going for was like a campfire type of thing, and it does that, but the nature of Colter's voice kind of amplifies everything. It's just a brilliant album, and it ignited my passion for vinyl records, so I'll always be indebted to it. That is at number 20, Songs of the Plains by Colter Wall. All right. Now, number 19, we are about to talk about I have never been more wrong, incorrect, a moron about an artist than I was about this gentleman. And that is Buck Owens and his Buckaroos. This is Roll Out the Red Carpet from 1966. Like I talked about in the previous video, I'm 50, and my first recollections of Buck Owens are like almost anyone my age. And that's from the TV show Hee Haw. Hee Haw was impossibly hokey. It kind of leaned all the way into kind of those country hokiness vibes. And Buck Owens, along with multi-instrumentalist Gene Clark, or not Gene Clark, I can't remember his name. Anyway, co-hosted the show, and he was a cartoonishly clowny type of figure to me, and that's who Buck Owens was until years later when I started getting into country music, and a small label called Sundays started releasing Buck Owens' 60s catalog, the heyday of his career, on CD. And it was just pure dynamite. I don't know if there was another time in my life where a new music, or at least a new artist, overtook my world as much as Buck Owens did. There was about a year there that was 98% of what I listened to were those Sundays Buck Owens records. He was way ahead of his time in being purposeful about the whole long playing concept. His records always had good balance of fast songs and slower ballads and instrumentals. He would let bandmates take turns, and you could tell there was a real consideration of the whole product. Buck Owens was nothing, excuse me, if not a businessman. And, I came to learn through listening to these records that this Hee Haw figure was actually the biggest country artist of the 60s, and a fundamentally important country artist. This album actually, ironically, and not trying to be hip, is void of any of his immediately certifiable known hits like Tiger by the Tail and that type of thing. It actually doesn't have any of those. But to me, it's his most well-balanced album. And it does like he does. It starts off with a real banger. He counts in with saying the words of the song, "I'm gonna roll out." Excuse the singing. But it has an absolutely on-fire pedal steel musical. He lets his bandmate and guitar player Don Rich take a lead. Buck Owens helped pen most of the tracks. And it is just... it's one of those things, again, I think what I learned in doing this list there are certain periods of music by artists that kind of encapsulate some sort of feeling for me. And it's like, I get a mindset like, that's what I want to hear. And Buck Owens is certainly one of those. I get a mood and like, I want to hear Buck Owens, then there's nothing else will do than a Buck Owens record. And if I got to pull one, it's going to be Roll Out the Red Carpet. And actually, as talking about Colter Wall, my collection is curated. They're mostly vinyl copies of albums that I don't listen to new records via vinyl or anything. And so I order them. I'm not like a big bin digger or anything, but this was actually a flawless copy that I found at a record store in Tampa. And it was better than any version at the time that it was available on Discogs. So that was just really cool. I think this is my favorite actual record store find. I was there for a work conference. So yeah, number 19, Buck Owens. We're back once again to this same thing of another mood and vibe artist who is in a certain zone. And that is Nick Lowe's Dig My Mood. Let me check the year real quick on that because I'm not exactly sure. It was 1998. Nick Lowe had a 3-album run where he did the smooth crooner kind of aged well type of vibe that he's actually continued. It's still kind of his the way he presents himself still. And I love all three of them. It's Impossible Bird. This is the middle one, Dig My Mood. And then it's The Convincer, I believe it's called. But this one holds the style the best and is the best group of songs. It's like a cold winter night with just the right drink type of vibe. Just great tracks, mostly penned by him. the Faithless Lover, Lonesome Reverie kick it off. I love that he's got a song called Lack of Love Is Done, and it's like, I go around the world and this is what I do. I climb up on a stage and I tell them about you. It's really cool. He does a cover of the song Failed Christian, which on this is really haunting and well done. There's kind of a Johnny Cash rumbly song called The Man That I've Become, and it's about becoming the grumpiest man alive because the world is beating you down. And then he closes with, if I had to assemble like a playlist of my 10 favorite covers ever of a song, he ends the record with this blues song, and I apologize, I can't remember the artist he covers, but it's called Cold Gray Light of Dawn, and it's so great. Might have my favorite line in any song ever, and that's I turn blue in the cold gray light of dawn. That's that. Okay, that's the heart of country music and blues music. You can just right there in that line. But yeah, this is number 18, Nick Lowe's Dig My Mood, and I dig his mood. All right, got 2 left for this episode. Number 17 is a big one. I am more drawn to cohesive album records and not a big lover of like big, what would be in the LP era, double albums, like a lot of songs type of thing. It's really hard to hold me with those. And I don't have many of those in my top albums, but this is an exception. And that is Mule Variations by the incomparable Tom Waits. And this is 1999, so we are coming in late 90s with a double shot. I'd had some familiarity with Waits, more kind of his early, Heart of Saturday Night, piano balladeer type of vibe when this came out. And what was it? Oh, I saw the music video for the song Hold On, and I was like, what? This is remarkable, because there was a vibe that I had, or a consideration I had about Tom Waits, that like all of his stuff was tongue in cheek. And when I heard this, they were just absolute free of irony songs that just rip your guts out. And Hold On, it's got the verse like in front of a pawn store, she's dancing, but it's so hard to dance that way when it's cold and there's no music. Inside your head there's a record that's playing Hold On. Just a gut-wrenching song. The House Where Nobody Lives, that could be one of the 4 or 5, like if there were psalms about my life. The House Where Nobody Lives, there's a house on my block that's abandoned and cold, and basically what it is a house is just nothing if it's not housing love in it. And it's just so many Pony, Chocolate Jesus is kind of a more like a kind of an entertainingly funny song. Eyeball Kid's a great weird one, but then he comes back at you with Picture in a Frame, beautifully romantic song. Georgia Lee, Why Wasn't God Watching for Poor Georgia Lee? And then the album closer, it's almost like a Bruce vibe, the Come On Up to the House. It's got a gospel vibe to it. He wrote these songs, most of them with his wife, and it's like you can tell there's like a hard-earned love in these, and just an impossibly wonderful and sincere and interesting album. And it's big, and I think it kind of carries the whole world of Tom Waits in it, and I'm really grateful for it. So yeah, that's Tom Waits with You Got to Get Behind the Mule in the Morning and Plow with Mule Variations. And now we're at number 16, and this was the last album I got on vinyl to complete this list of 25. It was a recent Record Store Day Black Friday release, part of one. And number 16, we have Dwight Yoakam, If There Was a Way. I believe that's 1993. It might be 91. I think it was 91, actually. Not that you guys are greatly concerned about that. Right up here is the box set. He dropped his 3 albums from the 90s in a record store day release on vinyl. This one had a pressing, but I think it was just overseas and was super rare. And it was always priced, I got a certain level. I'm like, I can't justify spending that much on a record. And then the other 2 albums, Gone and This Time, had never been pressed on vinyl. So it was just an unbelievable, I've got a separate video about it you can watch on this. But particularly If There Was a Way, the opening song has a Buck Owens inspired guitar riff. It's just, you can't get more twangy, from his awesome sideman at the time, Pete Anderson, was also his record producer, for what's the song, The Distance Between You and Me. And it's like a hillbilly alarm clock. It changed my life. I'd grown up with my parents, like I've talked about before, on like real early 80s kind of soft country radio stuff. And that was more like, I have a soft place for that. And I love those songs, but not because it like altered my mind. But this I remember specifically, actually, the moment. I was in my buddy Jody Miller's Toyota truck. I grew up in Bay County, Florida, and he was my best friend. And he was a lot more of a country guy. He liked getting big tires on his truck. He worked at the Winn-Dixie, and we'd go out and go riding in his truck just to find somewhere to get stuck. And we'd bog his tires or lock his hubs and try to get out from being stuck. Maybe have to call someone he knows, to pull us out with a tow or whatever, with a winch. But we were riding in his truck, and he had the country station on, and turn it on, turn it up, turn me loose, came on the country FM radio station and said, "My God, what is that, man? What is this?" And he said, "That there's D. White." That's exactly how Jody said it. Jody was a wild guy. I think he still is. He's around. I haven't seen him forever. I'd like to see him again. But I was like, what is that? And, I eventually was paying attention back then, pre-internet, because I'm old. And, the music video came out, and there's like these long, dramatic, odd, peculiar videos that he did for these, including Turn It On, Turn It Up, Turn Me Loose. And that was it. It was over. I said, you just can't put enough twang in my life. It was so much style, so much just coolness, and a world of great songs. Being a Bob Dylan guy, he has covered The Heart That You Own from this, which I think is really cool. And Bob did the intro to this set, and it is Dylan level eloquent. It's amazing the things he has to say about Yoakum, but just song after song after song. Like I said, The Heart That You Own, Sad, Sad Music, Since I Started Drinking Again, It Only Hurts Me When I Cry, which he co-wrote with Roger Miller, and it's kind of a turn of phrase, ironic song like he's known for, and closes with the highest charting song from the album, which was You're the One. Just a total game changer. It set the path for me forever to be like, I am never going to instantly assume country music is not the coolest thing ever. So yeah, that is part 2 of my rundown. To recap again, we had Colter Wall, Buck Owens, Nick Lowe, Tom Waits, and Dwight Yoakam. So I definitely represented my hillbilly pillar side with quite a bit of country there. And we are now getting to it. Next episode, we'll be getting into my top 15. See you then.